Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. On Friday, I broke the news that retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman was considering a run for the United States Senate next year against Republican Ashley Moody. Here is a small part of the discussion we had on him possibly running.
You could see the smile come across my face because it seems so fanciful at this point in time to discuss it.
But I don't hear a no from you.
Because I don't want to be disingenuous. I mean, I think I pride myself on being sincere and honest, and I'd want to be very, very thoughtful about where I could make the most impact.
We'll have more of that conversation later. For those who don't know his story, Vindman was born in Kiev when Ukraine was still part of the Soviet Union. His father fled Russia when Alexander and his twin brother Eugene were just 4 years old. They were part of a wave of Soviet Jews who settled in the United States in the late 1970s. Vindman grew up in Brooklyn, joined the military, was awarded a Purple Heart when an IED blew up his convoy in Iraq, and ultimately rose through the ranks to become the Director of European Affairs for the National Security Council during President Trump's first term. An expert on Russia and Ukraine, Vindman was in the Situation Room on July 25, 2019, when he heard what he considered a deeply troubling phone conversation between Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in which Trump asked Zelenskyy to investigate the Biden family as a favor to him, while also threatening to withhold military aid. Vindman reported what he heard, and it was because of Vindman that Trump was impeached by the House for the first time. Here is part of his testimony during the 2019 impeachment hearing.
I was concerned by the call. What I heard was inappropriate, and I reported my concerns to Mr. Eisenberg. It is improper for the President of the United States to demand a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen and a political opponent. I want to emphasize to the committee that when I reported my concerns on July 10th relating to Ambassador Sondland, and then July 25th relating to the President, I did so out of a sense of duty. I privately reported my concerns in official channels to the proper authority in the chain of command. My intent was to raise these concerns because they had significant national security implications for our country. I never thought that I'd be sitting here testifying in front of this committee and the American public about my actions. When I reported my concerns, my only thought was to act properly and to carry out my duty.
Trump was acquitted by the Senate, but what struck me as I watched back his testimony was how nervous he was and how the papers in his hands shook. After Trump's acquittal, Vindman was fired from the NSC staff, and he eventually resigned his commission in the military. He's written 2 books, Here Right Matters and The Folly of Realism. We started our conversation talking about Ukraine.
I think it's clear to me that Putin is not the least bit interested in ending the war anytime soon. He actually is enjoying the fact that Trump is rupturing the traditional relationships, whether that's with Ukraine or with the Europeans, and he's looking to take advantage of that chaos. So for Putin, mainly this is a way of dangling the prospect of some sort of peace in front of Trump to keep him engaged, to keep him from let's say doubling down on sanctions or supporting Ukraine, catering to Trump's own worldview of building a relationship with Russia, potentially economic ties with Russia, and getting all of those sweet deals that Trump keeps talking about, but without delivering. So it's a lot of, yes, we want a ceasefire, yes, we want peace, but. And that's a big but because it comes with a lot of strings attached. So this will be a muddling through type process until Trump recognizes that Putin's the one that's embarrassing him. Putin's the one that's not delivering this peace that Trump keeps claiming he could deliver, and ultimately that reorients the relationship kind of more neutrally, so not so pro-Russian, more in the line of supporting Ukraine, maybe putting a little bit of pressure on Russia. And that's the way that we get back around to a healthier policy.
You talked before about Trump being subject to flattery so easily. We saw that when the Prime Minister of England came and visited with him. We've seen that in terms of what the Middle Eastern countries are doing. Qatar is doing with gifting him a plane. How easily is Trump seen to be manipulated by foreign governments, and how concerning is that to you that foreign governments have figured out how to play Trump?
Well, certainly our adversaries are very, very keen to take that kind of approach, offer a deal, offer a plane, offer some sort of, whether they deliver on economic trade investments in the U.S. doesn't make a difference. I mean, part of this is just the PR win of having those kinds of announcements made. Let's think about the relationship with Canada, for instance, right now. The new Prime Minister Carney shows up, he stakes out his ground, he makes it very, very clear that Canada will maintain its sovereignty, will defend itself against economic attack and coercion, but he's also not looking to provoke a fight. And I think Trump really kind of appreciates that kind of, where he senses weakness and vulnerability, he'll exploit it. When he senses resolve, he'll look for ways to compromise. And that's the way I think that you need to approach a relationship with Trump as an ally, not through pandering to him or flattering him, and then ultimately not being able to deliver the kinds of economic wins he's looking to do.
What is Trump's penchant, you think, for strongmen?
Well, he sees himself in the same kind of vein. He admires the way strongmen wield power, and he wishes to emulate that kind of leadership. So those are the folks that he tends to have best relationships with. His worldview is a dangerous one, diametrically opposed to America and American values, not democratic values, just American values. It's one in which the strong prey on the weak, where you could coerce small and medium states, like he's doing with regards to Panama, Canada, Greenland, and Denmark, where you flatter larger states like Russia and China to get what you want. And it's a dangerous world in which the U.S. is no longer acting on American values and really converging with a place like Russia that sees the world in much the same way. 3 sovereign states, it's Russia, it's China, and the U.S. Everybody else has to do like they're told. And that's a world in which you see more interstate conflicts. You see more aggression from the large states preying on the weak states in their neighborhoods. It's one in which chaos reigns and there's a lot more conflict. And I think that's a dangerous place for us to be.
And how does he bring that to the United States in terms of how he views his treatment of Americans? If you're talking about that, it's his worldview. What's his view as it relates to the United States?
I think, unfortunately, it's quite similar. I think he was very, very aggressive coming out the starting gates, used shock and awe to really subdue some of the folks that we thought would be the most robust in resisting Trump's pressure, like law firms. These are massive law firms that could take him to the courts. Instead, you have a number of marquee law firms that ended up bending and accommodating him. The same thing with academic institutions that have robust endowments that could weather some of these storms. But that was in the opening phase. Now, I think that folks have found their sea legs. They've found their bearings, and civil society has found its bearings. They see that there's recourse to go take Trump to the courts. So you do have law firms that are resisting. You have the large academic institutions coming together, building consortiums to resist that kind of pressure. You do have business interests that are starting to resist. And frankly, I think that's bolstered by the American public that has come out with these hands-off protests to the tune of millions to impose costs on the Trump administration, pushing up his negatives, going after Elon Musk and Tesla specifically to force Elon Musk to step aside. I think that's where we're starting to we see that action and reaction, pressure, where there's vulnerability, exploiting that, where there's resistance, backing off and looking for other ways to do things to get what he wants done.
The issue of retribution, you talk about it with regard to law firms, with others. You're facing it. You've faced it. Not just in terms of what happened to you after you reported what you saw, and you document in your first book, Here Right Matters, but you're facing it even today. I noted that there was a Washington Post story about a letter that then interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin sent to you and your brother asking a series of questions. It wasn't clear whether or not they had opened a formal investigation of the two of you, but it was clearly some sort of shot across the bow, threatening. Even Elon Musk at one point posted, Vindman is on the payroll of Ukrainian oligarchs and has committed treason against the United States. He will pay the appropriate penalty. How do you view all of this, with these attacks on you personally and the threats against you and your brother?
So I think having served in the military, having served in combat, having served in the crucible of the embassy in Moscow under the watchful eyes of the Russian security services and intelligence services, I'm not one to, to be intimidated by these kinds of attacks. Am I looking to pick a fight? Generally not, but when the fight is necessary, I'll wade in and sally forward. The problem, as far as I see, is not. I'm less concerned about myself, and yes, I'm thoughtful and careful. I've received some training to kind of be able to parse what really is meaningful, what's noise in the social media space. I've done what I think I need to do with regards to making sure I have literally insurance to cover, litigation or attorneys lined up. An unfortunate place to be in America, where we shouldn't have to fear, political retaliation. But I'm frankly much more focused about what it means for America, what it means for my community, and there is. I should be abundantly clear. I'm resolved to resist these kinds of attacks. I'm resolved to indicate that Trump is not that strongman that he wishes to present himself. That Trump is not that strongman that he wishes to present himself to be. That we still live in a democracy, and I'm going to fight for my democracy, and I'll fight for my community. And the bottom line is that yes, I might be the target of these kinds of attacks, but they won't intimidate me. They won't change my course on what I think is the right thing to do.
When we come back, we talk about his possible run for the United States Senate. Stay with us. Welcome back. In my discussions with Alexander Vindman, it is clear he is in the very early stages of considering a run for the Senate as a Democrat. Now, it's also good to note that his identical twin brother Eugene ran for Congress in Virginia last year and won. Alex Vindman told me he believes there is something building across the country, and whether he runs for Senate or not, he wants to continue to find ways to serve.
It's critically important. What I do today, in a lot of ways, is maybe not all that different than what I did in the tail end of my career. I had an awesome run. 22 years in the military, serving in the embassies in Moscow, Russia, and Kiev, Ukraine, in the Pentagon, in the White House. When that was snatched away from me because of Trump's authoritarian tendencies, what I decided to do is I was going to continue to be active on those things that matter to me. I run a think tank that allows me to provide the kind of advice that decades of and millions of dollars that the military sunk into me to gain that level of professionalism, my own investments in education, that I could still provide this kind of unique and maybe in a lot of regards singular perspective on how we should be conducting ourselves with regards to Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and the world writ large. Advocating for public servants. I think it's the reason that the Trump administration has been so effective at attacking our institutions is because there's been a decade of investment, especially from Republicans, damning public servants. Not the public servants that provide us the services that are central to achieve some prosperity and some comfort. Those folks have been damned as wasteful, as lazy, and that's not what I experienced. That's not what I witnessed. I witnessed awesome folks serving the community interest, serving the public good. So I continue to do that, and then working in the orbit of politics, helping get veterans elected.
Why is that important?
Because I think veterans, by and large, get things done. They are not extreme voices. They tend to be more moderate voices. because they work in an environment that's representative of the country, having to bring teams together to compromise in order to achieve a common mission. I think veterans are in that regard, are very, very strong. They deliver for the public. I also think that veterans are values driven. For me, for the Army values were loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. It's a litmus test for how I conduct myself. It's, I think, a litmus test for how many Army or military folks conduct themselves. So that's what we need. We need values-driven leadership. So we don't have a rubber stamp on Trump's worst policies, as the policies that are going to strip away Social Security or Medicaid, the two of the most popular and most important policies and social safety nets that we have in this country. That you wouldn't have too many folks in the military advocating for those. There are some. These are self-serving creatures, and those are the focal point. Those are the folks that I want to make sure we get out first, because those are the folks that broke their faith, broke their oath of office. But that's why I want veterans in office, because I think they'll get things done and deliver for the American public.
My understanding is that you're considering a run for the United States Senate.
I'm not sure where that's coming from. I think there is a call to serve. You could sense that in the course of the fact that it was what I did for 22 years. It's what I committed myself to do now. I feel like I'm pitching in and helping get veterans elected. I think there was probably a stint in government for me somewhere along the way under the right conditions. The thing about Florida is it's an extremely tough environment. If you look at the map,
is that something that bothers you? I don't get the impression that you're someone who shies away from running in a tough environment.
I don't shy away from a challenge, so it wouldn't be that. But I also, would need to understand that I don't want to be some sort of sacrificial player. I'd want to do something that actually is meaningful, because the costs are pretty high. Costs meaning being away from my daughter, being able to provide for my family. So I'd want to do something that I think could achieve some results. The bottom line is my call to service remains strong, and I will continue to look for ways to be able to deliver for my community, to deliver for my country.
And I'm not expecting you to announce anything today, but I do want to just sort of press this notion of you running for United States Senate. Mm-hmm. You're aware it's out there. Have you been approached about running?
I've heard it being mentioned, but it seems.
Well, other than me bringing it up,
yeah,
but have you had any discussions with anyone about the possibility of running?
It seems very, very preliminary to discuss anything of this nature. You could see the smile come across my face, because it seems so fanciful at this point in time to discuss it.
But I don't hear a no from you.
Because I don't want to be disingenuous. I mean, I think I pride myself on being sincere and honest, and I'd want to be very, very thoughtful about where I could make the most impact. Part of that is a check on the president and his behavior, and by being able to advance other candidates around the country, I think I could do that. If there's a role for me somewhere else, I'll think about that very, very carefully. And if I choose to do something in politics or in policy, because that could be just a stint in government down the road, it's because I think it's the most impactful thing for me to do, and I could be successful.
Do you think Congress has lived up to their responsibilities so far through the first few months of the Trump administration?
So Congress is now dominated by Republicans in the House and in the Senate. And all they've done is a rubber stamp. They've allowed the most unqualified, the least competent folks that have compromised our national security, to be confirmed in the Senate. The House is now undertaking a radical budget that will strip away social safety nets essential to Americans and Floridians in particular. We have a massive number of elderly, senior citizens. People come here to retire and enjoy the beautiful weather and the wonderful lifestyle here in Florida. And the Trump administration is attacking that through the Medicare and Social Security cuts. They're attacking the important communities throughout the state that have come here seeing like-minded, Latin-speaking communities, finding comfort in that, settling here. But the Trump administration is is taking away temporary protective status for Venezuelans and Cubans that are the anchor down here in South Florida. So I think...
well, you have an immigrant story yourself. I mean, there is no better immigrant story than you and your family and what you've achieved. When you look at the immigration policy in the U.S. today, what is your thought?
Well, I think, I think that, I feel a kinship with the communities that are fleeing communism. My family came to the United States as refugees fleeing the Soviet Union. So I understand, the scars that brings. And in the Russian-speaking community or the Cuban community or the Vietnamese community, there's kind of almost a wholesale rejection of anything left-leaning because of the fact that it somehow, resembles communism. It doesn't. But I understand where that scar tissue, how that impacts people's decision-making. I think I do, in a lot of ways, I take pride in the fact that my family represents the beautiful aspects of the United States, the American dream. My twin brother serves in Congress. I served in the White House and defended my country overseas.
Did your brother's campaign, you worked on that campaign,
Sure.
Did that give you a little bit of an appetite for politics?
Well, I think my twin brother's campaign gave me a healthy sense of how hard you have to work in order to reach your community. He lives in Northern Virginia in a purple district. Lots of right-leaning folks, and he went to places that were hard, that were resistant to somebody that had a D at the end of their name. But he did that hard work, and he was successful. And he's doing a great job of representing his community now, focusing on constituent services. So I think it gives me, certainly a better understanding for my work right now, helping get veterans elected, what it takes.
You do have to admit there would be a certain, irony probably isn't the right word, but if you were to run for Senate and join the Senate, that same body that you testified before the House and then the Senate acquitted on the very case that you brought, does that thought enter your head at all?
The arc of history bends towards justice in the United States, and I think there would be some justice in holding Trump accountable.
And you joining the Senate?
I don't know. I think for those that follow me, when they hear me say something, they could take it at face value. I don't know. I think it's an important role. I think that the Democrats need to win in some very, very difficult places in order to wrestle control back. I'm not sure if Florida is the place to do that. It might be. I think my worldview is that Trump is going to hurt a lot of people, and this will be a referendum, and there'll be an opportunity for people power to manifest. Folks will show up that stayed on the sidelines last time, or that had some, got more than they bargained for with Donald Trump. So I don't think the state is too far gone by any means. I certainly don't believe that. I just don't know if I'm the right person to do that, or if that's the right role for me.
We'll be right back after the break. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefede@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.